Hi, everyone. Monday live Audiophile Roundtable, Audiophile Reissues. Is this the best? Is the best yet to come, or is it peaked? Hi, Steve Westman. Welcome to the Monday show. I'm excited about this one because I'm going to bring him right in. A lot of you have been requesting him for a while, and we finally got him on the show. Here he is, Mr. George Borden. How are you?
I'm fine.
Welcome.
How are you? Hello.
Well, very good. And looking behind you, this is a different look than I guess what the viewers have seen over the last couple of years when you've been on my show or anyone else's show. So you've moved.
I have moved. Yes, I live in Southern California, and I have a much bigger home than I had before. So, uh, same amount of records, but it's easier to breathe in here now because there's a little.
Jeremy was asking what you're up to professionally these days. I'm not sure if you want to say that, but that's what he's asking.
Well, I work in education. Let's just say that, and at a college, managing a department, administrative, not teaching. So that's enough.
You're seeing a lot of people here saying, hello, George. So glad to see you back. And we are really happy to see you back. I'll put all the comments up right now.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for your kind words and hellos. And I missed you too. It's a big deal to put all these records in boxes and then move them, as most of you probably know and have experienced. And and also getting into a new job, my first new job in 30 years.
Wow. So not a lot of time to spin records or buy records these days, I assume, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted you on today. I don't know if you caught last week's roundtable. I said it was in November to remember. Of course, we have the American election tomorrow, of course, and then of course throughout November, some big releases. You got the Beatles mono box, the Capitol one. I want to talk to you about that. Your thoughts there. The Doors Rhino Hi-Fi box. I know you want to talk about that because you texted me about 2 weeks ago when we had a debate about or a discussion about the Rhino Hi-Fi box. So I know you have some opinions there. The Stooges came out, the Ramones came out, Mofi's doing Fleetwood Mac and other ones as well. Lots going on. I mean, I don't know. I mean, and it's also too, we got to talk about has things peaked? And I'm not sure. I mean, because I don't know if you caught it, George, if you've been really following stuff, but of course, a few weeks back there was an article posted where vinyl sales were down magically 33.3%, right, which turned out to be a false report. And in the end, the report...
It was 45 instead, right?
Well, 33 point... Oh, no, actually it was just over 6%. But yeah, so I mean, vinyl sales aren't down. It was Luminate did a report, right? And for 30 years, they did sampling for independent stores to extrapolate sales of CDs, vinyl, and cassettes and that entire thing for the entire U.S. market. But they put a new system in place, I think it was end of December, and it involves counting actual sales from independent stores in the entire U.S. market. So they don't have the proper modeling or methodology right yet because it hasn't been a full year. So anyways, bottom line is vinyl sales are up 6.2%, which, is still high, right? So no, they're not down 33.3% or whatever it was. So that was a big news a couple of weeks ago. So that gets back to sort of audiophile reissues. Have they peaked? Your thoughts, first of all. And I will give you my thoughts, but I mean, what are your thoughts?
I think that audiophile records have always been a niche market.
Yep.
They've been like that since the 70s. And I know this, and it's always hard to try to just say something like you're just talking, having a conversation, and then all of a sudden somebody takes it the wrong way. I'm not saying anything in a besmirching or a negative way. This little narrow community that we have here where we're all talking about records all the time, and we're always talking about, a lot of us are talking about best pressings and this and that. that's so rarefied when it comes to the average record buyer. And it's always been that way. The average record buyer just wants to hear the music that they want to hear, and they go down to the store and they buy it and they bring it home. They don't really contemplate, um, or even have the possibly have the ability to tell the difference between a Kevin Gray cut or a Miles Showell cut,
Or
right?
who is Kevin Gray or who is Miles Scholl? I mean, that's probably the majority, or would be questioning that if we were to ask them.
Right, and neither should they be concerned about any of that.
No.
What they should be concerned about is listening to the music that they want to listen to, and in a way and in a format that they enjoy listening to it. And if having a little, turntable set up and playing records is a novelty, I think what, if anything, is going to drop off, it's going to be that type of listener, the record buyer that got back into or got into it in the first time because of that novelty factor, like that old style. Hey, it's like buying an old car. There's a lot of maintenance, and after a while, you start to loathe going out to the garage because there's going to be something wrong with that.
Oh, will the thing even start?
Yeah, right. And when you start going, oh, I got to clean these things.
Yeah.
I didn't have to clean my Spotify, and so after a while, if you're not into that relationship that you get with,
And that's what it is.
it's a relationship, and if you're uninto it, then it's going to die away after a while, and that initial kind of blast of all those people that got into it's going to go away. Mazzy's got a point there. Nobody cared about that kind of stuff.
And this is, when we started caring about it, and I say we, because I mean, obviously everyone that's watching the show, really the Hoffman forums and that type of thing really put that dead wax and the matrix numbers all in focus, and the mastering engineers and who was doing this and the cutting equipment and, that type of thing. I think that's where a lot of us got that from.
Yeah. I'm happy to see younger people or older people that have never gotten into it before just going, hey, I'm gonna try this. I love that. And that's what we're gonna get to. That's gonna be something we're gonna talk about with that Doors box set. But look, what I hope is that it dies off. I hope that record sales drop. This happened to me before in around 1987, and it was wonderful.
Hold on, 1987. Yeah, I'm correlating that because 87 was when the stock market crashed. Black Friday. So,
It was also when the Beatles were finally released on CD.
87. So could we see that happen? Was it November of 87? No, it would have been October of 87. So maybe.
What I'm saying is that the move away from vinyl has always been a fun thing for me because I can go buy records for $1.95 all day long and not have to freak out about like, oh, I now I can only choose between two. Yeah. Like that's nowadays and that's another thing too. People have been kind of pointing to it. It's like they're too expensive.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. You see that a lot.
Inflation, and they're not. And adjust for inflation, and they're not that expensive.
I think we did a show on that last winter, didn't we? But you had put up a chart where you compared, like it was a McDonald's Happy Meal or something relative to what it would be worth today. And I mean, the inflationary difference was pretty much the same as a record, I believe. So I mean, it's kept in pace. And I mean, we know that a record is, made with oil, and we know oil prices have gone up a lot. So that's one thing. And I always like to tell people too, I mean, houses have gone up a lot. So what do you expect? Nothing else is going to go up. If houses have gone up, stock market's gone up. I mean, things go up, right? I mean, records aren't going to go down because of it, because people need to make money in this industry. The record label, the band, the people, within the record company that, works and cuts the record, such as the mastering engineer, etc., all down the line, the guy that ships the record. So I mean, everyone's trying to take a cut of it to make a living. So that's why it goes up in value. That's for sure. But I mean, sales are up. It's at 6.6, just over 6%. So yeah, that's great. But I think the audiophile reissue market, I mean, especially the higher priced, higher end, $125 record, maybe that's going to be a little bit harder sell. And I'm going to show you something here. I want to show you this, George. Hang on. So this is acoustic sounds. You know how I do the top 25. I mean, you can see that 25 through 18. None of those are UHQRs. And if you move up the list, and I'll do that right away, and none of them are expensive. Keep going this way. We're still not seeing any UHQRs, any $125 records, all the way up. Still going right now. As you can see, we get to number one, Humble Pie. It's a $40 record. So you have to go all the way down the list, George, to, what's it here, number 27 before a UHQR shows up in the best-selling records of the Acoustic Sounds website right now. And if you go down more, you got, of course, The Doors' LA Woman. You keep going down further, and then where do we get another oh, here it is. There, Steely Dan Asia. There it is.
Yeah, you know that one's going to sell, right?
Right. So that's what we're seeing. So the more expensive records, the 125, which would have sold pretty quickly 3-4 years ago, and during that anomaly we called COVID for sales, it's taken a long time now. And so that's what I see. It's going to be a longer sales cycle for the more expensive premium records. I mean, you guys out there, if you want to, if you agree or disagree with me, please put it in the comments. But I think that's what you're seeing. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? When we look at this chart, I mean, we had to go to what, 25 out of the, what was it? The first one was 27 before we even saw, we see a UHQR. So times have changed.
Yeah, I'm noticing here Recordhead says that Blue Note Classic series are usually around 25, and there's no reason that others can't stay in that price point. But the Blue Note universe is sort of self-contained. Yeah. They still retain their masters. They still have I guess what's a Don Was now is in charge of Blue Note. You have a curator. You got to go, if you go back into the 70s where people like David Geffen and Ahmet Erdogan, these people owned record labels. They were music lovers who figured they could make a buck, but they really started by loving music and wanting to spread the word. And then those record labels got bought out, and then all those catalogs got sold off to here and over there and this and that. It was all over the place. And now when you want to go after a specific record, say Thriller or Asia or something, you got to go through a different set of hoops. Blue Note doesn't have to go license the rights, to a Blue Note record.
Exactly. And that's like Acoustic Sounds or Analog Productions. There's that, middleman such as Chad from Acoustic Sounds or Mobile Fidelity, whereas Rhino Hi-Fi is the license as well. They're just negotiating with the band the same as Blue Note. So keeping prices a little bit lower is what's happening there.
Yeah, it's Recordhead, I wasn't trying to shit on your point. I'm just saying that it's a good point though to make, that it goes to show you that had the labels kept it all together and not just been so eager to fire sell out, then they would have been in this position today. But who would have saw that, right? Blue Note, I think, and I'm not saying it like in a way that they stumbled into something. They got lucky in the sense that they hadn't done that. And jazz wasn't exactly like a hot ticket item, in the 80s, in the 90s.
Well, jazz records are selling more than they ever had in the last 20, 30 years. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. In the 90s, especially in the 80s, man, it was like all that soft jazz stuff, like Kenny G, right?
But if you're into jazz back in the 80s and 90s, you would have been converting to CD because that was the best sounding, to get for your jazz collection is, having it converted to CD back then, if you recall that, which a lot of people did.
So the Blue Note thing, if you're a jazz fan, it's the best possible time in the world to be a jazz fan, because you're seeing so many good represses of so many good records, and you have companies that kept a hold of the tapes. We're seeing like entire catalogs, of records coming out and really great jazz labels that it's 30 years ago, nobody even could name 5. There was maybe Blue Note, maybe Riverside, but besides that, it was about the artist, right? Most people think of, the 70s Columbia label when you were buying Miles Davis records back then, if you bought any Miles Davis records, and to get a 6-eye, Kind of Blue would have been super easy to do in 1987.
Easy. and not that expensive. But there was no Discogs back then. It would just be going into a record store and how many were out there? Not that many.
Yeah.
And then searching.
Yeah, it's just a whole, you know, it's a game, and the companies are going to try to capitalize on it, but they're also going to have these adjustments that happen when the initial fervor dies off and people sort of settle into their normal record buying habits, and yet you fortified everything and you put everything out there. Okay, they'll adjust. It'll adjust. I don't think it's a bad deal.
Well, here's the thing. Check this out. I was looking at this the other day. This is from medium.com, I think. Only 3 music companies are responsible for over 80% of the music you listen to: Sony, BGM, Warner, and Universal.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? There you go. Monopoly, man. 80%. Come on.
They've all been, there used to be so many labels. There used to be so many records.
There still is. I have something here. Hang on. Check this out. This is a global Spotify chart, top 200 songs by record labels, right? Look at those. Look at that one that says 34%. I mean, that's a lot of little guys there. And I mean, of course, you got Columbia 11%, Interscope at 10%, Republic at 8%, Warner at 7%, Island at 6%, and the list goes on. But look at that, 34%. I'm not going to count them all, but that looks probably like that's a good 25 to 30 record labels representing 34% of the market there. Easy.
Yeah. John Loper here is saying, I hope these labels are catching on the AAA cuts. I hate to tell you this, John Loper, but your chances for AAA cuts are getting smaller by the day.
Let me put that one up.
I hate to tell you that, man.
And that's why now is the pretty good time. I mean, I think I labeled this show titled this show today. I mean, is the best yet to come. I know a lot of us, want certain bands reissued, AAA, Led Zeppelin, those type of things, or another Beatles box mono. I mean, but will it happen? Probably not. I mean, that segues into this. Before I get into the Doors, I know you're a big Beatles fan. Your thoughts on the Capitol mono box coming out November 22nd, and a lot of reverb, all that echo, all that stuff that they did back in the 60s. Thoughts on that? Will you buy it? Where are you at with that?
I buy, because I already have all those records.
Yeah.
But that's how Americans grew up listening to it. Most 99% of American record buying public never heard a British copy of a Beatles record until 1987, when
I had no idea. Yeah.
Right. And so, I remember actually even kind of going, with the Beatles, did they make a mistake? It's supposed to be Meet the Beatles.
Right.
Like, I remember saying that to myself in like 1986 when I heard about the CDs coming out.
It was funny when the Beatles came to North America, and then Paul would announce, this song's off of our, I don't know, something. You know what I mean? You couldn't remember, because it was like not consistent with what the UK label had relative to what the Capitol North American one had. So you got all confused in some songs. It's quite funny.
Stadium, and John Lennon's like, this next song is from Beatles 6 or what?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I haven't got it.
Weird. But hey, it worked. It worked. But I think it'll be a hit. I mean, November 22nd, the Beatles box comes out.
It's a good idea for historical purposes, and I think that there's a lot of people that grew up listening to the Beatles in America will actually like it, because it will be familiar. I sometimes put on American versions of Beatle records, but I feel like I'm slumming when I do it, to be honest with you. But hey, it's all good.
I like this. So Scott Wheeler, he likes the plans and digital transfer over AAA every time, all being equal. Time to get over the digiphobia. I know Scott's a huge digital guy, and I think at this point it's not maybe about digital versus AAA. It's just best sounding. Whatever sounds great to you. And look at Mofi proved us. A lot of the Mofi stuff sounds great, even though we found out after the fact that it's digital, and it still sounds great.
I would say 90% of all record companies right now that are holding an analog tape of a famous record, the first thing that they want to do is digitize it to preserve it.
Well, and think about it. That's what Sony has done to the whole DSD thing, to preserve those tapes, right? That's what's happened here. University of Vinyl, George, what about the mix? Why can't we get great sounding modern records? Recent high profile releases are Wall of Sound, Congested, Mixed Loudness, War Stuff, Pearl Jam, The Cure, and so many more.
Okay. I have mixed, I don't know, 5,000 records. And starting at around 2002, I found that I was spending more time arguing with the artist about why.
You've told me that before, yeah.
And it was the artist.
Right.
I mean, to the point where the artist was going, I don't care about sound quality. I want it to be as loud as the Avril Lavigne. And okay, as long as I've told you and I've done my due diligence and I've told you what the outcome is going to be, and then literally do something that I know is making it sound atrocious, and then playing it back for them and going, yes, they're going, yeah, that's what exactly that's what we needed. It became part of the sound. It became part of it. How do you get heard over a million people screaming,
Right.
scream louder? There's that idea that maybe if I just sit here calmly and be quiet, somebody will finally go, hold on, let's listen to what they have to say. Not music. Louder wins. Louder, faster, harder. Motorhead.
I think a lot of us now, it's been a few years, Mofi's coming back. I mean, people are appreciating the Mofi digital step now, right? I mean, which is really funny, right?
It's about time people finally realized that Mofi wasn't evil. They were just doing what they thought was.
Well, it was never an evil thing. It was transparency. That's pretty much what it boiled down to. I mean, we're over it now, and there's a lot of great positive reviews about a lot of the Mofi cuts. I mean, the Miles Davis comes to mind. I know lots enjoy those.
Purchase after Mofi got reamed by.
What is that? What am I looking at?
That is the Beatles Mofi, and then that is the Sinatra Mofi, and that is the Rolling Stones Mofi.
Yeah.
All mint, all play perfectly, all sound exquisitely good, regardless of whether the scooped mids is a problem or not. But there they are. There's all 3 Mofi box sets, and I bought them like within weeks of people freaking out about the Mofi gate. I went out and I said, I'm gonna grab as many Mofi records as I can right now because I think people are missing something that's actually really good. I know, and I've heard people talk about the Bob Marley Exodus Mofi. It's one of the best records I've ever heard. Period. I don't. Is there a better pressing of? Yeah, I probably have one that's probably better. But at that moment when I got that Mofi Exodus and I put that thing on, it sounded so good. Compared to my OG, it was mind-blowing how good that sounded.
I think the original master engineer was Ted Jensen on the Exodus, if I wasn't mistaken. I know Miles Scholl cut it digitally, and it was a Ted Jensen master. They just basically flat cut to vinyl.
Miles Scholl's version is incredibly good.
And Miles Scholl said to me, Ted Jensen did all the mastering. He just cut it flat right to vinyl. He didn't make any adjustments at all.
It's one of the best. It's one of the best. And I'm not talking about Mofi's. I'm talking about it's one of the best records I've ever listened to.
Well,
most pleasing experience. I would play that record. And I'm not even really a big Bob Marley fan. I mean, I have most of his records, but I wasn't a big reggae guy. It was my stepdad was playing it all the time, right? So that's always playing in the other room. And then after a while, you get that nostalgia thing, and you hear it on the radio, and you go, I remember hearing that song all the time. So you go out and you start buying the records and you listen to it, and that Mofi version of Exodus was just mind-blowing to me when it came out. Yeah.
A lot of people are talking about the new Cure album. I haven't purchased it yet. I have it on. I listened to it. I streamed it, but I haven't listened to it. Apparently, doesn't sound that great. I don't know if you read some of the comments here, but it's not sounding like people are too excited about it.
I've heard a couple of online comments, and most of them were very bad and not pleasant at all. But I mean, this is Robert Smith, right? That's his name.
Yep.
If you trust Robert Smith, if you trust Robert Smith, go for the ride. I mean, it's part of the au revoir, right? It's this is the new Cure album, like it or not. This is what he wants to do. He stands behind it.
That would be artist's intent.
Yeah, and if you like it, you like it. And you know what? 30 years from now, someone's going to remaster it, and someone's going to go, "That's not what Robert Smith wanted."
It'll be the next generation of us YouTubers, or third, they'll look back at all of our shows and go, "What are these guys talking about? AAA digital and muddy mids and smiley EQs." Oh my God, This is historical stuff that if you're an audiophile 30, 40 years from now, you can watch this stuff and laugh at us and all, it's probably what's going to happen.
Someone's saying right there, Robert Smith oversaw the Cure reissue campaign and they suck. But the people said the same thing about Jimmy Page's.
So I was about to say Jimmy Page has sucked, but Jimmy Page loves his remasters, and I don't see anything else happening.
Record. He's the producer of the record. And
he produced it.
Primary songwriter on all the songs. It's the way he wants you to hear it. So you're either in or you're out. What do you?
It's hard. I mean, and it's hard to debate the guy that produced it and wrote all the music and was part of the whole thing too.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard when we sit back and we're like, armchair quarterbacking this because we have no skin in the game, But yeah.
Yeah, but that doesn't rule out that it doesn't mean that it's not okay for people to have their opinion. I think that sometimes
but why don't they listen to us? Okay, our opinion is Jimmy Page. No one likes your 2016 remaster. Let's get it recut AAA. What's wrong with that?
Well, to be honest with you, see, there you go. I don't agree. I have about 5 of those.
I have mine. I don't.
I think they sound fine. I think they sound great. To be honest with you, the ones I don't like are the classic record ones. I have a classic records physical graffiti, and I think it sounds dull.
You're probably one of in the minority here. 'Cause, I mean, Bernie Grundman classic records cuts, great cuts.
And it's not like I'm selling it, right? Because it's worth like $500.
Yeah, I know.
But to be honest with you, it sounds kind of dull to me. It sounds kind of lifeless. It doesn't sound as good as say like I think it's the Robert Ludwig of Song Remains the Same. That's meaty. But then again, I'm also somebody who I'm contemplating selling my RL of.
You got someone in agreement. PB Thal says the classic Zeps are way overrated.
I agree. I think
so that could be a debate today as well, because a lot obviously feel those are the best sounding ones, the Bernie Grundman classic records cuts of Led Zeppelin. So tell us what you think.
As off base as Patrick was with the Doors box set, he's right on base with this classic Zep.
So we talked about Beatles mono. You're happy with it? Buy it. Should be great. Now you had a lot to say a couple weeks back. We were talking the Door when it first came out. The Doors box. Kevin Gray, all albums cut AAA with Bruce Botnick supervising the whole thing.
Yeah,
3,000 being pressed. What do you think? November 22nd.
Well, first of all, you can't breathe new life into them old ass tapes. But here's what I would say. Looking at it from a record company, record business standpoint, I think it's awesome to have a single one-stop shop box set for Doors records for somebody who's starting a collection. I think it's imperative that people that like records, and especially like that aesthetic of playing vinyl records and listening to that older music and hearing it the way that it was originally intended, I think it's fabulous that a new collector can go out and just get all the Doors albums in one shot instead of just getting the 3 that everybody talks about.
I sort of wish that happened when I was collecting records years ago. Just get the box and be done instead of just piecemealing it over time.
Yeah, I mean the MC5 did it, and that worked. War did it. You could, how many people are going to go out and meticulously purchase every single War album? No,
I'm not.
It's all in a box set, and now you can take the whole thing home and you can just go through the whole thing, and that's even better than an album to me. It's like it's the catalog, or at least a good portion of it, and you can listen to it in a big chunk. The Ramones did it with like the 80s stuff, right? They did an 80s box set. It's fantastic. And even if it's not the best possible cuts of those records, it's a good thing to know that they're out there and they're the original records and they're not.
And then we're going to have the debate, right? Should I just, the analog 45 RPM cut by Doug Sachs versus the Kevin Gray 33 RPM? Which one sounds better? I mean, is there really going to be that much of a difference at this point, George, in your expert opinion? Honestly, come on.
I don't think. I think there could be, but I don't think there will be. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Is it possible to mess it up? Sure, but as witnessed by a lot of different releases that we've seen lately, where people go, "Oh my God, this is atrocious." I get it. Sometimes you make a decision and the decision doesn't ring with everybody. But I don't think that going out and buying the Doors box set is going to be anything but good to anybody that buys it. It's going to be great.
And it'll sell. I'm sure it's going to sell. There's 3,000 being pressed, and and then unnumbered individual albums after that at some point. I'm not sure when that will be released, but there'll be lots for everyone, right? They're going to be around for a while.
And I think that if it doesn't sell, it's not because the cuts are bad. It's because people have lost interest in the Doors.
Well, that goes back. I mean, have we peaked? This is getting back to our whole show today. I mean, have things peaked? I'm talking audiophile reissues, not necessarily vinyl, but audiophile, which is a niche market, like we said at the top as well. We all got spoiled during COVID. We're all sitting at home more. We all had more money. There was no concerts. There's no sports games we could go to. So we had all this cash accumulating. We were buying records online, following guys like myself or you on YouTube and listening to all the different reviews and shootouts and making a decision that way. So now I don't feel that is as exciting as it once was. I really don't.
I'm not missing it. I haven't been doing it for a couple months now, sitting around talking about all these shootouts and all that kind of stuff. I don't miss it, but I'll tell you what, though. A friend of mine that I haven't seen for 35 years came over the other night, and we went through, 2 or 3 different versions of Abbey Road and Sergeant Pepper, just listening to them. And because, we had been discussing them since we were 20 years old, as youngsters.
Yeah.
And we didn't have those available to us back then. You know what I mean? We didn't even know about a parlophone, thing of a record. So to sit there and listen to them and realize, oh, this is what they were listening to in England on the day it came out.
All right.
That was fun. But we were geeking out in a different way. We weren't geeking out in it like it's the be all end all of the way to listen to this record. We could listen to it on AM radio and it'd be fine. So again, I think what happens is that you have to come back to the music, and that's what I mean. If the Doors box doesn't sell, it's because people have lost interest in the music. And to be honest with you, there's nobody left really curating the Doors except for Bruce Botnick.
It's really. Just Bruce Botnick's the gatekeeper of those tapes. So I mean, I think he only was going to do it if he was supervising it with Kevin. So he had to be in studio with Kevin the whole time.
Yeah. Norman Masloff is saying that the new Doors Rhino of LA Woman will not have the see-through sleeve. I just don't care about the sleeve though, Mazzy. I mean, I just care about the record. I just want to put on a record and hear the music and it sounds good, but I get it. Yeah. If anything.
And Bourbon Street too. Sorry to interrupt you. I just saw this one come up, George. Vinyl. It's more than just vinyl that's peaked. Zoom in out of look at collectibles, luxury goods, vehicle prices. Everything across the board has calmed down.
Yeah. We're tightening up. We don't know what's going to happen. We got some things that are taking place over the next couple of days, and we got Christmas coming up. We got Thanksgiving coming up, and the holidays, and things are tight. Money's tight, and people don't have that stay-at-home mentality of, entertain me. People are out working hard and trying to do stuff, and this stuff takes a back seat to it. But hopefully, when they get home on the weekend, they get a chance to do it. That's what we used to do back even in the 70s. I didn't think about records during the week, but on Saturday morning, we'd get up and drive out to Westwood and go down to Sunset, Tower Records on Sunset, and buy a big stack of records and listen to them all weekend, and then go back to work and school during the week. And maybe it's just not an all-encompassing 24/7 thing. Okay.
Scott Wheeler makes a good point. Like, I mean, not sure to gauge a peak. I mean, is there? I think it's more the peak being maybe the FOMO of audiophile reissues. It's the excitement. It's still exciting, but it's not as exciting. Oh my gosh, we're waiting for the the Mofi to drop or whatever release they're going to be doing. It's just the excitement isn't the same, and the sales. You look at the last few Rhino Hi-Fi cuts they've done, the Ramones and Stooges, and before that Emmylou and Graham Parsons. I mean, you can still get them. They're not sold out or anything anywhere close. They're selling okay and all right, and they're happy with the sales, but not close to selling out. So that's the big difference right now we're seeing in the audiophile reissue market.
It's never going to make sense for a company to go after the 1,000 to 2,000 people that are going to buy the record thing, because that's not what a company's trying to do. When a company does it, it's because it's just really a passion thing.
See, that's you have other interests other than records. See, $1,000 on tickets to concerts, everything.
Even if somebody paid me $1,000, I wouldn't go see Oasis.
My daughter just got back from Las Vegas,
And I'm not saying that to besmirch Oasis.
She went to see the Eagles at the Sphere and at the Venetian.
Yeah.
Take a look at this. This is cool. She sent me a video.
You can spend all your time making money. You can spend.
Pretty cool.
Sounds just like the record.
Amazing. I thought that sounded so great. And that was off of her iPhone, right? But
Yeah. It's almost pitch perfect.
I think tickets they're around $250 minimum each, if I'm not mistaken. Around there.
If Rhino released a Cars box set from the first album, The Heartbeat City, and they priced it under $200, it would sure, of course it would. I think so. I predict the Stooges Hi-Fi will sell it. Wait a minute. How many are they going to make?
It's 5,000. I will tell everyone that Rhino Hi-Fi is very happy with the sales, but nowhere near selling 5,000 currently. Nowhere near. I mean, we talked about this before. I think with Rhino Hi-Fi, the Black Sabbath self-titled came out on a Friday, was sold out 5,000 by Wednesday. That's sort of the the litmus test for all records now going forward. And I don't think you're going to see that unless it's a title that everyone wants to get, wants to have. And I don't know if that's out there any longer, or is it?
The secret to it will be if people like Tim, influencers, Mazzy, yourself, talk about it,
which we do.
Yeah, and talk about it in a way not just catering to the audiophile people or niche market. You have to actually sell it to some average person who might instead be. You have to convince somebody to not buy Taylor Swift and buy the Stooges. That's a hard sell,
especially the demographic.
It's a hard sell.
Someone that's buying a Taylor Swift record who goes, Stooges, what's that? Is that some sort of, were those guys from the 20s that did movies? I mean, they don't know, right?
Most people that like the Stooges have the Stooges and always have had the Stooges. Yeah. The Stooges are not, a big band. And I mean that in the sense of like,
I get it. I understand.
They're not Creed. They're a small, historically significant band. And the problem is that you have to find a way now, if you're going to print up 5,000 of these things, to get people to kind of go, I'm not going to buy Snow Patrol. I'm going to try this Stooges thing that everybody's talking about.
Rhino Hi-Fi, I mean, yeah, I think they'll do another one at some point.
See, Sabbath,
they might sell.
Let's think about this for a second, too. If it wasn't for like Ozzy, and I'm not saying this, like, let's just step back for a second. Everybody calm down. If it wasn't for Ozzy and his success and everybody talking about where Ozzy came from and Ozzy having a TV show
that helps,
and his wife being on like The View,
that helps.
Black Sabbath wouldn't be selling 5,000 copies of anything right now, because in the 80s when heavy metal was running rampant, Black Sabbath was almost like a relic.
That's true, yeah.
And yet they invented the genre. It's like it comes around and then it goes around and it does the thing. And it's like, we have to remember, like, put some perspective on everything.
Yeah.
Iggy Pop, when did Iggy Pop ever hit that moment? You know what I mean? Like, he didn't.
What was that album that David Bowie produced with the Real Wild Child song from '86? It was on Adventures of Babysitting. That's when he got commercially successful, and he hated that album. He actually hated it, and Bowie produced that one.
And I was just going to say that without David Bowie's influence, a lot of people wouldn't know about. And I'm not saying that in a down way. It's like the biggest song that Iggy Pop ever did is China Girl.
Yeah,
but he didn't do it in the big sense,
right? Exactly.
And it's like
blah 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 blah. That was the '86 album of Iggy Pop. I like that. I have that record. It's good.
Mazzy, I'm not saying that those aren't great records, but it's like So Swordfish Trombones. But that ain't.
That's another subjective album too. I mean, some people hate that album. Some people hate Tom Waits. Some people love Tom Waits. I think it's really subjective to use an album like that as an example too.
Right, or Captain Beefheart,
yeah.
or even Zappa. Zappa's a polarizing character.
Oh, it's so polarizing.
And so I'm not trying to say that those aren't good albums, and I'm not trying to say that Iggy Pop isn't a living legend. and didn't create great music. I have all the Stooges records and I listen to them.
Yeah.
Very rarely does a friend of mine come over and say, "Oh, wow, let's play the Stooges." You know what I mean? Maybe at 1 out of 10 people, whereas almost all of them will go, "Oh, do you have Sticky Fingers?" You know, sure, I got that.
Or Sergeant Pepper?
Yeah. And you're kind of like, no, let's listen to something else. We've already talked about that a million times. But again, it's like it's that same kind of thing. It's not about it's about mainstream. So here's the point that I was making about the Doors, really. I think it's a good thing for a company to take something like the Doors, which I think is really essential music
Yep.
of its time, and put it all together in an easy to grab package where somebody who's instead of, I mean, look, you can go looking for Doors records all you want, but if you're going to find some really good copies and they're in good condition, they're going to be $50 a piece. Doors
all day long.
Yeah, and so to be able to just kind of go in and grab the whole collection, it's been cut from analog, it's going to sound the way it's supposed to sound, and it's of its time. You're going to get that experience of listening to the Doors, sort of in the same way that originally people listened to them. I think that's a cool thing. I think that what we got to do if we're on here, like on YouTube, and we're trying to, I don't know, whatever, inform people. I mean, obviously people are tuning in because they want to hear what people are talking about. Yep. Then we owe it to not be the consumer and try to be the manufacturer, and to understand why these things are even being put out into the market, and not be constantly going, well, you know what I want, what I wish we had. No, that's not my goal. If you ask me about the Doors, it's not about my personal opinion about what I want. It's about if I think that would be useful to somebody else. That's why we're here talking, because it's not about you. We already have enough records.
Well, it's the thing. And we have that one report from Luminate a year or two ago where it says, vinyl sales, half the people that buy vinyl don't have a record player. If that's is that even a true report at this point? I don't know. Apparently it is. Which means there's a big market still to come to buy the gear in that demographic. And I know that for a fact too. And I have a buddy that owns a record store here in downtown Vancouver, and he had two 19-year-olds come in and they bought a few records, and I had to ask them, do you have, what do you use? What do you play these records on? Oh, we don't have a record player yet. We want to get one and want to save up for a good one. So, I think that's, they're buying it, I know, from a collectible standpoint, or just because they want it and know eventually down the line they'll listen to it. But yeah, definitely young people, guys. I've witnessed it with these eyes. I've seen it happen. They are buying records and they don't have record players.
Yeah. It's like when people buy like a box of baseball cards and then they don't open them. Why are you doing it?
Well, it's like just leaving a record sealed and not open it. What's the point? It could be warped.
I think at that point you're thinking about the investment.
But I've gotten into this before. Unless you're a record dealer, own a big record company that buys and sells collections, you ain't making lots of money. I was in the stock market as a stockbroker for 20 plus years. You make money there. You don't make money flipping $5 records.
Yeah.
That's Mickey Mouse, man.
Yeah. If I wanted to make money, I would have gotten into banking.
Exactly. I don't know. I mean, I made a $5 profit today. I mean, that's in my world, in my universe, in the stock brokerage industry, that's definitely not, flipping records is not a big issue. But so Audiophile Reissue, has it peaked? It's hard to gauge. I think it's more to do with demand and excitement. And I showed the folks the chart there at the beginning, the Acoustic Sounds Top 50. I think it was number 22 or 20. I think it was 27. Let me go back to it here. What was it? 27th was the UHQ, or the Doors LA Woman. That was the first premium box, number 27. Before that was all like $40 and $60 records. So that tells you price point as well. And I think the price point too, George, for an Audiophile Reissue is a big thing too. You look at Rhino, $39.95. I'll include everyone. I've had a few people say, don't forget the shipping, Steve. And plus, of course, the shipping, I understand that makes it more, but that seems to be let's say a $60 price range for either a 33 or 45 RPM, like the Atlantic 75 seems to be the price range that everyone's buying. Would you agree?
I would, but I'd also have to include myself and yourself and others in the idea that we spent a lot of time talking shit about a lot of these highfalutin reissues, and we have when it was going good, we were building them up. I had a very successful John Coltrane "Love Supreme" video, right? And then I said I'm never going to talk about that kind of crap again. Because I don't want to influence people's buying decisions any more than just saying I like the music or I don't. But there's been a lot of talk about, the packaging, ways to cut costs, and a lot of complaints and pushback from what we would call the vinyl community about some of these releases. We would love to just have this really great, awesome, pristine record in a regular old cover, and not and so we have to take responsibility for, talking about it a lot in front of a few thousand, 5,000, 10,000 people.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, if there's 10,000 people going to watch this, probably 2,000 of them are looking to buy.
Well, look what Christopher says. You're right. Your guys influence me in my wallet. So there you are. And I've had that, lots of people have emailed me or text me, Steve, you're costing me lots of money. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing too. Here's my question, really. Is it that all the normal people that are buying records are bored of it? Or is it just all of us that have been talking about it for the past couple of years are kind of bored of it?
That's a great question. I'm not bored of it. I mean, if I was bored of it, I wouldn't be doing the show once or maybe twice a week and getting all excited for all these different releases. I think for me and for maybe a lot of the folks, are you buying as much as you used to? So, during the heyday 4 years ago, I think your budgets were higher. You could probably spend anywhere from $100 to $500 a month on some of these audiophile reissues, which I know lots were doing during that time. Now, I don't think that's happening as frequently.
But
that's big part of it.
Our tastes and our libraries only go so far. We're not all Mazzy who have, every record that's ever been made. Some of us, I consider myself to have a very narrow focus when it comes to music, and I know the music that I like, and I'm not apologetic about it. And I've been slammed before for kind of, ignoring certain records that are obviously have great merit that I don't talk about. But that's me. I like what I like, and we all like what we like. When is there a point where you kind of go, wow, there's not really anything I feel like I need anymore? I have all the music that I need to keep me going. Like, how could you not keep going for at least, a year with everything that's
when does this all become like that A&E show Hoarders though?
That extra
George?
It's Hoarders. Yeah, you're right.
Isn't it like we're just like, it's like audiophile reissue hoarding. At some point, we should do like a show on it and just go door to door to different people's houses and see all the hoarding.
Right.
Are we listening to it, or are we just buying it just to have it?
And I got 4 boxes under the bed in there that I don't even know what's in them, and I have to go back and look on.
So you bought a record last week and you can't remember where it is or can't find it. So what does that say about your hoarding? Right?
Let me just clarify what he's talking about. When I moved in the old place, I did pack everything alphabetically. And I had them all lined up, ready to unpack them back in order. And I said, I'm going to do something different. I was on the phone with Nick P. And I said, what I'm going to do? I'm going to put these things back out of order. And then what's going to happen is that it's just going to be little pockets of things. Right. And besides, I can kind of look at the spines and know what the hell I'm seeing, right? Mm-hmm. So the only thing that has any order to it is that those 2 boxes are Beatles and those 2 boxes are Stones. Everything else is random. And so when somebody wants to listen to, like myself or a guest says, let's listen to Stone Temple Pilots, I have to go, all right, give me 10 minutes and let me look for clues. And in a way, what it's also prompted me to start doing is to kind of start listening to things that I normally wouldn't listen to. Because if you want to whack-a-mole here, I don't even have alphabetical order. So good luck. but I've started to memorize where some of it is, and I'm starting to. It's starting to become clear where I know where my Kiss records are. I know.
Sure, everyone's different, right? Whatever works for them. Some have an alphabetical order. Some put it in bands. Some put it in the different record labels. I mean, if they've got 2 or 3 different copies of it, just depends, right? And then
Yeah,
Norman says, "Let's do a whack-a-mole, George."
really. Do we have time for that?
John
Do we?
Loper. The point is that if I decide to listen to it now, how many do I listen to? He says. So yeah, there
We
you
only
go.
got 10 minutes left, Mazzy. You want me to do one? I'll just do one. You ready?
Okay, go. You're wearing pantso, right?
I'll do it. Oh yeah, totally. I'm
Okay,
still
cool.
dressed. Okay, I'm just going to come right over here.
Okay.
This is totally unfiled, right? Okay, no looking. All right, here we go. Oh, well, everybody knows this one. Actung Baby. I think U2's best record. It comes after, I think, a record that was one of the first U2 records that I actually bought. I didn't buy Unforgettable Fire or Joshua Tree or any of those early Boy or any of those records. I bought Rattle and Hum. And there was that movie that accompanied Rattle and Hum. And it's sort of like U2 is sort of going through America, sort of scavenging the past and the history and visiting Sun Studios and recording. And to be honest with you, it got kind of pretentious to me. I got into a few songs from the Rattle and Hum record, but when I heard, here's a song that Charles Manson stole from the Beatles, we're stealing it back. I was like, wow, that's weird to say something like that. There's the Joshua Tree. Yes, I have that myself now. But this record, when it came out, I actually I was not going to buy it, but I happened to be in a record store and it was playing, and I thought, wow, this sounds really inventive. This is a new level, because we were already used to the Edge creating these sort of sonic landscapes with his guitar, but he kind of took it to a different level with this record, and it sort of almost sounded a little more electronic in a way, like Mysterious Ways and stuff like that, the weird guitar loops and stuff like that. And then, another great ballad for all time.
One was great. Love One.
So they sort of redeem themselves here for me, at least for me. I'm not saying it like it's some sweeping statement that U2 sucks or whatever. It just didn't work for me. This record did work for me, and I, actively sought this one out. And it's my favorite U2 record by far, Actung Baby. So there you go. There's my whack-a-mole.
Thank you.
See.
There you go. So we talk Ramones, Stooges, the Doors box, Beatles box. I mean, those are the big things that are coming out. I don't know if I'm missing much. I can't remember now.
Wait, we didn't talk about the Ramones. I mentioned the Ramones 80s box. Are you saying that they're coming out with the 70s box?
Well, no, there's no box. It just Road to Ruin, I believe, is the album. The Ramones hi-fi.
But yeah, that first Ramones, and then what's it, Rocket to Russia?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then, I mean, those are fantastic records. And I think that even if you don't like the Ramones, you should at least have a Ramones record to get that vibe. It's like Motorhead to me,
right.
Or AC/DC. You got to have one at least. Some of us are going to have all of them, but at least have one so you can get that vibe. It's a good vibe to be able to have from time to time, and you can kind of pick any of them, And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying Ramones had sort of one speed, and same with like AC/DC, same with Motorhead. It's just it's a vibe. You put it on, you dig it, or you don't. But having one is fine,
So that's the thing. I mean, people that want to diversify their audiophile collection, stuff like the Ramones or the Stooges, most probably don't have, majority, I would say, don't have copies or not big fans of them. And it's a good chance to check them out.
That's true. And for me, I think the Ramones, I don't know if the Stooges fill that same sort of hole that the Ramones do, where I don't know if the Stooges are all-time classic like the Ramones are. I think more people know the Ramones without even knowing the Ramones than the Stooges, if you know what I mean. Like,
Right.
Stooges weren't major airplay. The Ramones, had videos on MTV and stuff.
That's true.
And so, it's almost like MC5.
Well, the Stooges only had a few albums, right? 69 was the Stooges, and then Funhouse, and then what was it? Raw Power, right?
Yeah.
3. That's it.
Yeah, it's with MC5 really too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Pivotal bands doing something aggressive in a time where it was pretty, it was pretty aggressive for what was going on at the time. And I think, I think that, I don't think that record buying is going to die, and I don't think it's reached a peak. Maybe the audiophile thing is slowing down simply because, a lot of, I think, like somebody was saying before, luxury items, records in general are a luxury item because nobody needs them. You can listen to anything on YouTube,
Yep.
anything.
It's a want, not a need.
Right. And so it's a luxury item. And then to go further, a Ferrari, is a luxury item. And these records that we're talking about are the Ferraris of, it's hard enough to just buy a Ford Focus.
Right.
It's a commitment. It's a big deal to buy a Ferrari. You got to have a lot of expendable income. And I think that I do think that the quality is there with a lot of them.
So here's Rhino, Rush, the album's 89 to 96, 6 LP Atlantic Years collection, out of print titles. What are your thoughts? You're a big Rush fan. This is another one. This is limited 3,000. This is really a big surprise. I mean, again, digital files, right? Not AAA. But
Yep.
it was a big surprise for a lot of people.
But a lot of those records were recorded digitally too. So
yeah. What are your thoughts on the 89, 96 Rush years?
It kind of upsets me a little bit because
Why?
I paid $400 for a couple of those records. Test for Echo, you go try to buy that right now. It's going to be $350, $400 to buy an original pressing of that. And to have those available, I think is awesome. The more people get into Rush, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Pound for pound, the greatest band of all time.
Ooh, that's you can put the gloves on for that. I don't know if everyone's going to agree.
There was only 3 of them, and they were skinny. Pound for pound,
and they're Canadian. Gotta love those Canadians, George.
Yeah, those Canadians. They were always very skinny, and it was most of their weight was in the hair. And so, pound for pound, though, I think my favorite band of all time would be Rush. But I think the Beatles are the greatest band of all time.
Other things that are coming out November 22nd, we talked about the Beatles, the Doors coming out. Also, Eric, New Order, State of the Nation, New Order self-titled, Bizarre Love Triangle, and Brotherhood, all coming out, reissued by Rhino as well.
Isn't Substance the big one that everybody wants?
Yeah, but that came out already last year. I want to say the Substance 1987, and that got mixed reviews in terms of sound quality. I know the original UK version sounds great, but I did buy it as well. I've listened to it a few times. I don't mind it.
I personally that sort of 80s synthy stuff is not my bag. I'm not qualified to talk on it, but I do understand that I'm the type of guy that has one Depeche Mode record, and I bought it begrudgingly just because it was reminded me of the old times when I hated Depeche Mode.
Well, anyone that goes, I know here in Canada, in Vancouver, the first thing people ask for are these record shows. Do you have any Depeche Mode? Do you have any Depeche Mode? So those are the first things that all these record dealers get asked. So there's a lot of demand for those old original albums still.
Who was just saying, Chad? Oh, Michael Green. There was recently an MC5 box that was actually pretty good. I mean, it's the MC5. It's a decent box. All the way through High Times, right? To kick out the jams and it was like 3 or 4 records. It was their whole thing. It was pretty good actually.
Substance UK pressing is a great collection. Sounds good enough for me. I wouldn't try to replace it. Yeah, the UK Substance New Order, Good sounding record.
Yeah. Also, what was the one that everybody was up in arms about? The television one, right?
That was, yeah, television.
Artist. That was an artist intent thing, right? Everybody was going, did the artist approve of it, or was it just the manager?
Well, I'm finding out too that a lot of times it is the manager that's approving these things.
Yeah, well,
bands on if they're not dead, the band's trying to make money on the road, and they clearly don't have a stereo system on their tour bus or in their hotel room. So,
and also most of them sold off their catalogs and gave away the rights to everything, and it's no longer in their hands. I mean, that's it's not a new thing. But even today, I think Springsteen did it, Bob Dylan did it. If anything comes out now,
Fleetwood Mac or Stevie Nicks or all those guys, Mick Fleetwood, Justin Bieber,
Stones. You get closer to the end than the beginning, and you realize maybe it's not worth it. Give me 500 million and do whatever you want.
David Bowie was cool before his time. Like in the mid '90s, he sold the Bowie bonds based on the royalties of his catalog at the time, and you could buy a Bowie bond for, I don't know what the coupon was, 6-7%, and it was guaranteed backed by the royalties of his catalog at the time. And he went and I think it was an estate planning thing back in the '90s, and he raised a heck of a lot of money for that, and it was a big success. That'd be cool to have those things happen again. You won't see that now, but I think that was before its time. Buying a Bowie bond, I think the minimum investment was like $10,000, and pretty cool. He was definitely a smart businessman. I know when he did pass, his whole estate, everything was set up perfectly. There was going to be no issues at all. It just sort of continued on.
He was also a fine artist.
Yeah.
Fine artist. Sadly missed. Greatly missed.
I think it's going back to sort of our title, has Audiophile Reissues peaked? I think it's more maybe not the sales, but maybe our excitement has it peaked. Or is it the sales? I mean, could be one of the other. I'm still excited. I'm always excited when Rhino's releasing new stuff. It's exciting to me to get some diversification, not the same old, Rolling Stones or Led. I don't even want to hear this, but Led Zeppelin and all that stuff. Stuff that's diversifying your musical palette, as I like to say. So just getting different things in your collection that sound great, cut AAA by some of the great engineers of their time, of our time.
Well, I think, yeah, also is when it becomes sort of standard and normal and every week there's a new one, then it's no longer special. And those audiophile records should be sort of special and rare and come fewer and farther between. But it sort of became like every single week there was 5 new, there's a box set, or there's a UHQR, or there's a Mofi, or there's a one step, or there's this, or there's that. And everybody saw that. And then it sort of saturated everything. And it's like, yeah, maybe like you're saying, I don't know if everybody's peaked on buying them, but I think that it sort of lost its luster, because the more often that you do it, the more chances for failure there's going to be. I remember people were clamoring for the Black Sabbath. People were freaking, saying that Rhino needs to do Black Sabbath, and then they did, and people were kind of like, man, it's all right. It sold out, but I do remember sort of like a lackluster response to it when they finally did it. Like in terms of just, it went from being, instead of like that excitement building up, it was the same thing with the Atlantic 75 thing. A lot of people were kind of like, oh man, do we really need these anymore?
I remember that at the beginning, a lot of negativity surrounding the Atlantic 75. You're absolutely right. I recall that now, especially another Phil Collins. Who's going to buy this Phil Collins in the air? And he listened In the Air Tonight at 45 RPM. But I mean, they sold really well, and they've done really well, and they sound great.
Right. And I don't consider those to be premium records. I just consider them to be high quality versions of records.
If you need a copy, if you know the OG and you want to explore different titles, hey, I want to pick up Velvet Underground. This sounds cool. Loaded. Cool album. I've never heard of it before. 45 RPM, cut by Ryan Smith, whoever it is. Yeah. Why wouldn't you get it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I don't know if it's peaked yet, but I think maybe some of us, or our general enthusiasm is maybe waning.
Yeah, I think the title is peaked in terms of maybe, it could be piqued sales or piqued our excitement or our interest, our FOMO levels. I mean, we know that clearly the FOMO is not what it used to be. Clearly, things are taking a lot longer. I don't care what the title is to sell. I think really the Audiophile Reissue FOMO hit a peak, and you said it, the Black Sabbath Rhino Hi-Fi release back whenever that was now. That's when it really peaked. It took, 3-4 days to sell. And from that time now, we haven't seen the same excitement or the same sales figures for a lot of these records. I think LA Woman, although that's not true. I guess it was LA Woman by the UH Cure by Acoustic Sounds or Analog Productions sold out. So there's a good one. There's an example.
Everybody seemed to be pretty fond of Asia too when it came out.
But it hasn't sold out. But I'm saying I believe the LA Woman is sold out, which is well done. I think it was 5,000 units. Pretty good.
Well, see, and that's the other thing too, is that when they do these little releases and they sell out, people get mad about that too, because they should just be in stock. You should just be able to go down to the record store and there should be all these titles available, and that's what it used to be like. You go, hey.
And I think that's what Rhino Hi-Fi is doing, right? Everything seems to be available other than the car's self-titled, of course. And that was one thing they did get back to me, Rhino, and they said not every single numbered album they have of a Rhino Hi-Fi series will actually be then pressed as an unnumbered copy. So that's what they told me. It just depends on demand.
Yeah. We'll all be all right. We'll be good. We will have many more conversations about records.
I love records.
Me too. I do. So, I love them a lot.
Glad to see you.
It's been a pleasure.
I think a lot of people are glad to see you. It's been a while.
Good to be seen.
Well,
I things are leveling out now, and I'm starting to be able to just get back to normal, doing things,
So can I ask you this?
Sure.
You need to go back on your channel and do shows again at some point?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Seemed to be a magnet for things that had nothing to do with music, and it doesn't really interest me. So I don't know. We'll do this for a while, and then
just come back on, talk records, show off your Sinatra box.
Yeah, and then one night, Nick will be gummied up, and he'll call me and say, "Let's jump on," and we'll jump on. You never know. Yeah, I'm sorry, man, Mazzy. Sorry, I missed you.
Apparently you were missed in L.A. The boys were in L.A. cruising around.
It's true, and it did happen. And I saw the results on Instagram and
a lot of results.
And it didn't work, but it's it'll happen when it needs to happen. It just everybody understands that whole idea. You relocate, you get into a new job, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of all kinds of business going on. I got family stuff going on too, just all kinds of busy business. So
things are better there too, I hope.
It's let's just put it this, it's stabilized somewhat enough to where I could be prepared to kind of come on and do this and not have to be worried about dealing with.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah.
And your band is going well. Are you practicing again or
no? We not yet. We I got together with the bass player and we kind of sat around in here and played guitars together and everything, and we're really excited about doing something. Logistically, it's difficult because we're like kind of triangulated around the Los Angeles area, and we all have different schedules. But it's definitely gonna happen, and when it does happen, it'll be, we're gonna literally play out and record an album and all that kind of stuff. There's no way around it. I mean, I'm a recording engineer, and he's a recording engineer, and the drummer plays with Mike Watt, so on a pretty high professional level. So there's a lot of it's going to be very easy for us to do something in a professional way. So we'll do that.
Well, we'll leave it at that. I would appreciate coming on the show. This has been a great little discussion today. So I think excitement has peaked. Sales might have peaked. Doesn't matter. Spin your records. Have some fun. Buy them if you like them. Don't buy them if you don't like them. That's all, right?
I just realized that I look like I have one of those hats with the propeller.
That's
on.
okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. And then big day in the States tomorrow. So, I mean, history is being made tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see what time is it now. What time are we at now? 8 o'clock or 8:10 Pacific Standard Time. So probably some of the polls will be closed at this time 24 hours from now and be very interesting. Could be a very interesting evening tomorrow for you guys in the States. So I'll be definitely watching that.
I don't think there's any way around it. It's going to be interesting no matter what. But yeah.
There you go. Well, have a good night. And everyone, thank you for joining.
Hey, thank you. And also everybody that was nice in the chat that was
That was
saying
nice.
everything. I
Appreciate
really
that.
that. I miss all these people. I miss you. I miss everybody. Thank you.
Appreciate coming on. You've been missed. It was nice to see. Everyone seemed to miss you. It was really good. But great chat today. Look forward for you to come on next time. We'll have we'll do a actual round table. Round it out.
Let's do it.
All right. Have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.